Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where we are now in our third season of helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, dietitian, running coach, twin mom, and fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchuk Performance Nutrition, I've spent over a decade helping runners learn to fuel their bodies better, unlock their best running performances, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. This podcast is all about helping you become the very best runner you can be by teaching you the running-specific nutrition, training, and recovery strategies that you need to reach all your wildest health, fitness, and running goals. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, join me each week as I share my best advice, interview guest experts, and talk to everyday runners who are conquering their goals by tapping into the power of performance nutrition, with a side of some myth busting too. And if you're looking for even more tips, resources, and strategies for runners, you can find me on Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian or by visiting www.stephanienatchuk.com. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Start today's episode, I just want to really quickly invite you to download my free fueling guide and strength training guides for runners. Currently available as a handy little bundle for you all in one at the link in the show notes. So just to give you more information, in this free fueling guide, you're going to find my top fueling tips for runners. As well, in there, I've put together some meal ideas and even a couple of recipes for your pre and post run fuel. We've also got some suggestions for what to fuel with during your run to make sure that you just have the best overall performance possible. If you've really been struggling to understand what to eat, when, where to start when it comes to supporting your running with better nutrition, this guide is here to help you kickstart your running journey. The other guide that I mentioned is my strength training guide for runners. We know that runners are notoriously bad at consistently getting their strength training in. So this guide includes both a PDF resource, it's got some tips, some guidelines, as well as a link to my series on YouTube where I walk you through all the exercises in this program, giving you some suggestions on proper form, how to modify if needed, how to progress things if needed. This is a really great beginner's guide to strength training for runners who want an effective but efficient full body workout that is going to support the key muscles and movements you need to run stronger and help stay injury free. So once again, both of these guides are available as a handy little bundle. So you just click on the link in the show notes, enter your email address once, and both of the free guides are going to get sent to your inbox right away. I really hope that you find these guides helpful and that they support you and your running goals in the most effective way possible. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast. I am, of course, your host, Stephanie Natchuk, and I'm really excited to bring you this week's episode where we are talking about hiring a real human running coach versus using AI to plan your running training and your workouts. And this episode came up for me as a topic idea because in one of the coaching groups that I'm in, someone had said, essentially with all of these AI platforms that are coming out for workouts and with a lot of people using these types of apps and programs, like, is this the end of coaching, right? Like, are we all done for here? And are we just going to be on a sinking ship as everybody moves over and starts just using AI-based run coaching programs instead going forward? And my initial response, of course, was like, obviously not. Like, that's crazy. There's no way. And then I thought, well, you know what? I wonder how many people have sort of thought about this outside of the coaching space, but also what are the differences, right? Like, what are the reasons why someone might be perfectly well suited to using an AI-based running program, and what type of runner might really benefit from hiring a coach instead? Are there specific
individuals or situations or circumstances where you really should probably choose one versus the other? And what are sort of the pros and cons and differences between these two different things? Because, like, from my perspective, a app-based running program is essentially the same as going onto a website, and there are lots of them out there these days, and downloading a free PDF running plan that they have available. And I mean, these things have been around for years, right? There are many, many different website publications, different places that you can go and access free training plans for a number of different skill levels, for a number of different race distances, like all kinds of different things. And some people would feel like, oh, why would you ever hire a running coach when you can just download a free plan off of the internet, right? And absolutely, right? That's a fair question to ask and a fair assessment. However, of course, as we know, and as I hope you'll understand today, there is so much more to run coaching than just being given a plan to follow. And if you have worked with a coach and that's all you got was here's a plan to follow, and you're paying perhaps hundreds of dollars for something like that, then maybe it's time to really think about what you're looking to get out of coaching or what you need from a coach, and look for something that's going to fulfill that a little bit better instead. Or you might be the kind of runner who actually is very well suited to using an AI based run program because of your specific needs are not something that you really require that level of interaction or maybe that level of support that you should be getting from a good coach. So yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm really excited to bring you this episode. As I said, I don't think that this is the end of run coaching, but what I really am hopeful for is that with the capabilities of AI, we can come to a place where it's not one or the other, right? It's not, these sort of handmade plans that the type that I create, where, each individual workout I have to put that together. And, I have a library of workouts that I can pull from. So, of course, with time, as I have more people that I coach, it does get easier because I've got some of these workouts in there. But of course, when we're looking at the level of customization and personalization with things like pacing and effort levels and stuff like that, kilometers versus miles and everything, on the back end and behind the scenes, there is a tremendous amount that goes into creating these personalized plans for my clients. So I would love to see a place where you get the full coaching experience of working with a human being, but at the same time, maybe on the back end, some of my daily tasks are going to be simplified or streamlined with the help of AI, right? So you're not trying to replace your coach, but maybe now your coach is having to spend less time and therefore maybe is charging a lesser fee. I don't know. Anyway. So, this idea of using AI to generate training plans or like help us create training plans, like honestly, isn't a super new thing. I feel like, some of the apps that have gotten really popular recently, or of course, ChatGPT, people have been using that for training plans. But companies like Garmin, for example, have had AI integrated into their coaching platforms for a really long time. Like, AI Garmin Coach has been around for years. Like, I wrote a blog reviewing the Garmin Coach like capabilities, I think in 2019. And what's interesting is that to this day, that is still one of the most popular blog articles ever on my website. Like, even to this day, I still get so many people reading that article. I probably should give it a little bit of a refresh, because back in that time, Garmin Coach didn't even have a marathon option. Now I see it does. I, of course, was looking as I was putting this episode outline together. And so, what I want to be kind of clear about, though, is that I think that there is a huge difference between AI-based running apps and running programs. So, like, something you're downloading, either it's free or you're paying a small fee for it, and it's a running specific program that has been built to create running plans, right? It's using your data, whether it's your Strava data or it's your watch, whatever type of watch you might use, or it's taking your data and it's taking what it knows about you and your goals, etc., and it's then able to convert it into a plan or a program for you to follow. And this is really different to me. This is really different between something like that and sitting down and say asking ChatGPT to make you a marathon training plan. If you do that, you're probably going to see some very strange stuff in there, unless you have a pretty good level of knowledge and education around marathon training plans. You know exactly what you're looking for and exactly what you're asking for, and you can be really specific with your prompts. And looking through the plan, when you do see something that doesn't make sense or is not clear or whatever, you can go back and you can, ask for that clarification, or you can redo your prompt, and you can be really specific with what you need. I almost feel like, you have to be a very experienced runner or even maybe a coach to be able to do that. Now, of course, the problem is you've got this plan, but it's not integrated into anything, right? Like it's to me, it's the same as just printing a PDF off of the internet. And the quality of the plan that you get is probably not going to be that much different or any better than something you would just kind of generically print off the internet, unless of course you have a pretty good amount of education and knowledge and can tell ChatGPT exactly what it is you're looking for, and of course have the ability to look through and see where it might not make sense, or where it might not be appropriate. So that is not really what I'm talking about today, because I just think like the quality there is so questionable and so inconsistent that I would really not recommend people, especially injury prone runners who are, have really specific goals and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't suggest getting a plan from there and relying on a plan from there, again, unless someone's going to be like looking it over and giving some feedback, or optimizing it for you. What I am talking about today, though, are the AI-based running programs. So again, like Garmin Coach, for example, which has been around for a really long time. The Runna app, I've had a lot of people seen a lot of people talk about that one. Nike Run Club app. There's a lot out there. There's when I was looking into it, there's a big list. A lot of them I have not heard of, so I don't know how popular they are, or maybe they're popular in certain parts of the world more than others, that kind of thing. So either way, it's a plan that you download. It's going to ask you for some information. It's going to connect to your watch, and it's going to then personalize your plan based on your goal race, your fitness level, maybe past performances. It might ask you some scheduling information. Like, for example, Garmin Coach, I remember it asking me what day of the week I wanted to do my long run, how many days a week I wanted to train. And then it also gave me feedback on whether or not the goal that I had set was reasonable based on the information I had put in. For example, my typical easy run pace, or my typical running pace, how many days a week I wanted to train, etc. It then was like, if you put, say, a goal finish time for your race that was quite ambitious, it would be like, maybe not. And it had a little, and again, I don't know if this is still the same way it is now, because I had used it many years ago, but it had a little a little sort of guide on it for like how confident it was in your ability to reach your goal. And it was like a scale, like a meter scale, and it would kind of drop off a little bit. Oh, I'm gonna back up, down, and sort of go as you went through the plan. Now, of course, a real human coach is doing the same thing, right? A real human coach can look at your training data, create a customized plan, look at your past performances, hear about your schedule, and all of this. So this, again, is not super different than hiring a coach. As well, you're getting real-time adaptability. So these AI plans are able to, shift things if you miss a workout. If you don't hit your goal paces, then it can shift it and adapt it, right? Even using sleep data, recovery data, etc. And again, a real human coach can obviously do this too, right? Make adjustments to your schedule in real time as you need, as you go. It's also, convenient, and it can be a lot lower cost. So you don't need to necessarily, some of these things are happening automatically, right? You miss a workout, it might automatically update your plan, as opposed to maybe needing to like connect with your coach, send them a text or a message, or email them, or schedule a meeting or whatever, to be able to go ahead and make those adjustments or make those changes, right? There's maybe less work on your part of needing to provide that explanation or reach out or anything like that. And of course, Generally speaking, this is going to be much more affordable than working with a one-to-one coach. Some of these apps are even free or have, versions of them that are free. So if you're someone who is really looking to be more mindful of your budget when it comes to fitness, your budget when it comes to running, then definitely using an app can be really helpful in not spending potentially hundreds of dollars a month working with a coach. And then, you're getting that ongoing integration, and you're getting the syncing with your watch and stuff like that to kind of track your data, give you feedback, and that sort of idea, which for a lot of runners is really like what we love. We love using data to make decisions. We love looking at all of these different parameters and having it all kind of come together. Like what's the point in tracking and looking at all of this stuff if we aren't using it to make decisions, right? If we're just tracking a bunch of stuff just to track it, but it has no bearing on what we're actually doing with our workouts, then what's the point in knowing all of these numbers or having all of these numbers, right? And that's not to say that all of the data that we can track is important or useful, but having a filter, right? Having a program that you can have all of this data be assessed, and then it's deciding what's important and what isn't. And then, like you don't have to be making those decisions. You don't have to be worrying about some of those things. It's just sort of essentially spitting out something based on all of the information that it's receiving. And, I think that there is value in that, right? To have us not be in charge of understanding all of the metrics, or like having to be really worried or really consumed with all of the metrics, but to have something else say, okay, we're going to look at this data and then we are going to give you a plan and optimize a plan based on that. And, our Garmin watch, our Apple watches, things like that are already doing that for us without necessarily needing to use an AI training app on top of it, but it can just help to give us better quality information. Sometimes, right? Not all the time, but sometimes. And then, of course, you can also use it if you are doing like multiple sports or, things like that. Some of the apps, some of the programs have ways to integrate all of that together. And then also, there can be a level of engagement and motivation and community too in some of these apps, in that you're able to connect with other runners. You're able to, boost other people's runs, or you get badges for accomplishments. You get, the little kind of bits of motivation and encouragement to kind of help you along. And some of the programs also have voice coaching, right? Like coaching led workouts, which I know a lot of runners really, really enjoy. So I think that ultimately at the end of the day, there's a ton of overlap between the benefits of AI programs and the benefits of hiring a coach. I think a lot of the stuff is one and the same, especially with the ability now to have your coach see all of your data through some of the platforms that we as coaches are using. But I think the biggest pro here is just that you're getting a fairly customized plan. We'll talk a little bit about what exactly is that level of customization that you're getting. You are getting a customized, adaptable plan for a lot less money in most cases than you would from hiring a coach. So I think there's a lot of pros here. But as you'll see, that does not mean that it's going to be the right choice or even a good choice for every single runner out there, right? So next, let's talk about what are some of the downsides of using an AI-based running plan. And the first huge one is the lack of human connection and human intuition and decision making. So AI is looking at numbers, right? All AI can really understand and really assess is numbers. And because of that, a number value has to be assigned to everything. And when you start to like break down our entire human experience into scores, sleep scores, performance scores, recovery scores, like everything has to be boiled down to a number. It has to be very simplified. And sometimes this oversimplification of everything just becoming a number really takes away some of that context and some of that human connection and intuition that we really need in order to have a plan be like truly customized and personalized. So like things like extra stress, outside of training, right? Whether it's like stress at work, where you might be in your menstrual cycle, emotional fatigue, right? Like other things coming in, right? We are not just robots that just get up and run and then do our recovery and get up and do it again and sleep for 8 hours and like all kind of, perfect chugging along. There's a lot more depth to the real human experience and our environment and a lot of other obligations and things outside of training that all influence this. And it's very hard to assign a number value to a lot of that, And so being able to talk to someone and like, kind of talk it out and share some of these things and brainstorm and problem solve and all of that, there is just a level of that human touch that I think is really necessary and really important for a lot of people to have as part of this process, especially runners who may not have a tremendous amount of like, I'll say support in other areas of their running, right? So like if you're someone who runs with a tightly knit kind of run club and you have a lot of this support and a lot of this extra feedback and things like that you're getting from people, then that might reduce your need for this from a coach and again make it so that an AI based program is a little bit more appropriate for you. And then, same thing goes with like emotional support as well. Again, you might get this in a lot of other areas of your running, but some people don't, right? Like some people run a lot of times alone. They might not have like family or friends that really understand their running. And so when you're kind of out there just like by yourself, I think having a coach right there to like give you support, celebrate your wins, and just kind of be there for you is something that again, like AI just doesn't really like offer that. It'll give you a little like badge on your running streak or give you like a thumbs up when you execute a workout perfectly. But I mean, it's like a robot isn't your friend and your coach kind of can be. A coach can also offer you a lot of reassurance. We talk a ton in running about like trusting your training, trusting your training, trusting your training, and having that person that you can come back to when you aren't really feeling it on the trusting the training to kind of say, oh no, like you're doing good. Look at everything you've done so far. Like when you need that reassurance or even that mindset help, that's something that AI certainly can't offer. And I don't really know if it ever will, right? Because again, that human experience, that human connection is called the human connection and experience for a reason. And like if you aren't following the plan, there's nothing the AI is going to do about it, right? And if we know that like knowing does not equal making the change. Like having knowledge about what you need to do does not automatically mean that you're going to do it, right? And so the motivation piece and the mindset piece and the encouragement piece, I just think is so, so key, especially if that's an area that you tend to struggle in. And of course, when we're looking at the actual level of customization, the actual level of personalization, the reality is that these AI programs are following an algorithm, right, to make decisions. So as much as it is customized to you based on your data, it's still an algorithm that is taking the numbers, filtering the numbers through a like decision tree, and that may not suit everybody. Like if you are a runner who has a lot of injuries or a history of injuries, you may need to go slower and progress more slowly with your volume than most people. And so that's where you might find that if you're using these AI-based plans, you're just always getting hurt, right? You just can't seem to even follow, say, like the 10% rule. I don't know if they tend to follow the 10% rule or not, but like some of these big jumps in mileage, for example, or not having maybe frequent enough deload or cutback weeks for you, maybe running too many days per week, or maybe you need to do a long run every other week versus every week or every 10 days. Like there's little things that if you are somebody who has, or maybe you do a lot of like work travel. And so you need to have a schedule that kind of like moves with you and is just sort of like adjusted and adapted. AI can have a really hard time with that because it tends to work better when things are relatively straightforward, right? When you fit in a box, then the box can make the decisions and it can follow the algorithm. And the outcome is going to be a lot more predictable for the runner who fits in that box versus the runner who doesn't, is missing workouts, needs to shift the schedule, is maybe having trouble with injuries and not able to keep up with the volume or the paces or whatever, and then is falling off it and just having an overall very negative experience with using that plan. And it's because it's just not personalized enough to understand those extra complexities. And then, of course, when you are hiring a coach and you're sitting down working with your coach, things like upcoming vacations, things like work travel, things like maybe needing to do a long run on a different day of the week or needing to shift things, like making those adjustments can be done in advance, right? We can plan around your vacation. We can plan around your work trip. We can plan around a birthday weekend, or like it's easy to go in and say, okay, we need to shuffle some things, move some things. Okay, let's do the deload week here instead. And you can adapt it proactively versus needing it to be after the fact. You missed a workout, your performance dropped off, you didn't do all your workouts that week, and then it's being adapted for you after the fact. I think ultimately you can end up missing a lot of time, right? Wasting a lot of time in your training when that's the way that we're doing things. And then, of course, just like all things that are data driven, all of this depends on good quality data, right? The quality of the information you get from this and the quality of the training plan that you get out of an AI plan is only as good as the quality of the data that is being put in, right? So if you are on the treadmill, for example, and we all know notoriously that our watches, the GPS for pacing and distance on our treadmill is notoriously bad, right? So you really have to keep an eye on that when you're doing treadmill runs, because the information is going to be really inaccurate. And yes, there's some calibration, some ways that we can like calibrate and we can match it. But for say like speed intervals, like if you're doing a 30-minute easy pace run and it's pretty steady throughout, then you can go back and you can calibrate your watch to say, okay, well, no, actually, I ran this distance in this time. So then it can just redo your pace for the whole thing. But if you're doing, say, speed intervals on the treadmill and the information, right, the GPS information is very inaccurate, then, even after you calibrate the total distance, it still may not be correct for what you were running at your interval paces versus your recovery paces. And so again, like this is where some of then the predicted paces or some of the planned paces in your program might not make sense or might not be accurate based on your goals, because it's using bad quality data to make that plan for you. So something to be aware of is I think that AI-based plans are probably not as good. If you are using a treadmill for a lot of your running, then you're probably going to really struggle with that part of it. You also, of course, aren't getting like real-time feedback on a lot of things, right? The plan might get adjusted, but you're not necessarily getting like the feedback and the conversation and the discussion, right? Like the problem solving and the troubleshooting and all of that kind of stuff. The other thing too is that, AI is good at telling you what to do, right? And the same way printing a PDF running plan off the internet, right? It's easy to find out what to do. I often don't find a lot of people struggle really all that much with what to do in life, whether we're talking nutrition, training, whatever. It's the why. And so a lot of these programs are also not giving you that deeper understanding of running, learning more about running. Why, right? Why are we doing it this way? Why is this my goal pace for this run? Why am I doing these so many miles at easy pace? Why should I be in this zone for this workout? Why am I doing these repeats? Like, what is the purpose of this workout? What is my nutrition, my hydration, my pacing strategy for race day? How do I prepare going into this race? Like, what do I need to know? There's so much information and education that I think a lot of runners can really, really benefit from, to both have a deeper understanding of running, which of course can lead to more enjoyment of understanding that process and really becoming a student of the sport of running, but also like kind of being expected to just sort of blindly follow a plan and trust that it's going to get you there, I don't know, like that might be okay for people who have done this a lot, right? People who have a lot of experience, they've done a lot of races, they have no trouble with mindset or motivation. They just need a plan. Then I think that probably can work well and they might be well suited. But for a lot of other people who need a little bit of extra, whether that's a little bit of extra reassurance, hand holding, motivation, whatever it might be, to get them through that training plan and across the finish line feeling good, then there's a lot that AI just is not able to do. So, as I kind of alluded to, I think there are certain types of runners, or at the very least, certain types of training situations and circumstances. And this may be a certain runner at some parts of their life and not other parts. If you're the type of runner who has relatively straightforward goals, no injury history, not a lot of like complex scheduling needs, like some of the stuff I talked about with long runs and work trips and vacations, whatever. Like if that's not you at all, you work a a typical schedule every single week. Your schedule doesn't change. Your running schedule doesn't change. Other life obligations don't really change. If you aren't running multiple events in a short period of time or multi-day events, if you don't really struggle with things like motivation or to train or mindset, you already have a good level of education around running, pacing, strategy, and you also have a good level of intuition to know when something is going wrong, right? Like, when this plan is maybe not working for you. Like, you have enough, uh, you know, you have the ability to kind of reflect and judge, and you feel really confident in your ability to do that. Then I think that if you check off a lot of those boxes, then I think ultimately an AI based plan probably can work perfectly fine for you. And if this is your goal, right, can save you some money in this area. And I think that this is probably a runner who has worked with a coach for a long time, is maybe in between goal race seasons. And you're just kind of looking like you want to have a plan to follow still, but you're just sort of looking to like maybe maintain your fitness. You're just doing like a base building plan at this point in time. You might get back with your coach when you have a goal race coming up, that kind of thing. And, you just sort of need something to bridge the gap. I think there's nothing wrong with using an AI based plan to, lower the cost of training and get you where you need to be. But I would be very cautious and hesitant, if you're trying to be more budget conscious with your training and you use one of these plans and you're not suited to it, right? Like you're not, unfortunately, the runner who this is really best for, and you end up with a DNF instead of getting a medal that day, or you get totally derailed from your training, you get hurt and you're spending hundreds of dollars on, physioathletic therapy or something like that, because you got hurt trying to save money on coaching, then unfortunately this whole thing may not have been that worthwhile, right? So I want you to really think about that. What are my coaching needs? What are my goals? Who am I as a runner? What level of education, knowledge, intuition do I have? And do I think that I have the ability to really be in charge of that? And if the answer to that is no, or there's any question marks, then I think being able to hand off some of that responsibility to your coach, to have that sounding board, to have that support, to have that motivation and that knowledge from another person, I think that that's honestly priceless in the long run. So, of course, hiring a human coach, you get all the same benefits of what the AI is delivering in terms of like the customized plan. And, maybe there's even an added level of personalization that we are able to consider your lifestyle, your personality, your training schedule, especially when things aren't consistent, other stress in life, injury history, like other things that we can really take into consideration when planning out what we're going to do together. And of course, you're getting feedback, right? You're getting the why, you're getting the education and the knowledge to go with it, right? Strategy. Why are we doing these kind of workouts? What is the purpose of doing this progression run or these tempo runs? Or why do my long runs? Why should my long runs be here? Why are we doing strides at the end of a workout? All kinds of stuff like that, right? What should I be doing for my warm up? What are some good stretches or dynamic movements I should be doing? Like you get so much more education and information from your coach. You're also getting, from my perspective, and of course, myself being both a dietitian and a running coach, you are also getting, information and knowledge and a deeper understanding of things like your nutrition, your hydration, electrolyte replacement, carb loading, race day prep, how to eat to prepare for your workouts, how to eat to recover from your workouts. Like there's so much more to it than just here's the plan, follow it, run the race, and be done. We can also be more proactive and problem solve in advance. Nothing makes a big injury worse than ignoring a small injury. And if we are consistently ignoring those small things until they become big things, then we're going to just continue to have those setbacks. Now, of course, there are some downsides to working with a coach as well, right? It's not a matter of, okay, hiring a running coach is the perfect solution for everybody at every point in time. And, I always think that everyone should hire a coach no matter what. Obviously, I think that most people can benefit from working with a coach, especially if you're newer, have a big goal in mind, are tackling a certain race distance for the first time. I think there's just tremendous value in working with a coach that will honestly last a lifetime. But the reality is, it can be very expensive, right? Depending on the coach, depending on the level of support, depending on the other things that you're getting, right? Like if it is including nutrition coaching, if it's including maybe psychological or like mindset coaching from some people, there's a lot that you can get, but of course that this may come at a much higher cost. And not every coach is going to be the best fit for every person, right? Like we're human beings just like you, and we have personalities and we have communication styles and we have training philosophies and strategies that we like and belief systems, right? Like we're human beings. And so a lot of the benefits of working with a coach also sometimes can be a little bit of a downside too, right? And, depending on your personality and the personality of your coach, like it might take a few coaches, it might take a little bit of time to find someone that you really click with and really vibe with, and someone that you can see yourself sort of working with long term. It's also important to work with a coach long enough that you know how to kind of, when the going gets up, like it's a relationship, right? I mean, it's a coaching relationship. And how does this person, respond to things that come up? How does this person respond to challenges? Does this person have explanations for questions? Like, you know, there's a lot that goes into being a good quality coach. And it sometimes just takes a few to find someone that is the right fit for you. And of course, depending on the communication style or the schedule that your coach follows in terms of work hours, the responsiveness to say questions or like emails or messages, it may not be as instantaneous as what you get from, the adjustments that you can make with a AI app in real time. And of course, coaches might have limits on how many athletes they can work with. So there might be a coach that you really want to work with, but they might not have space because, as I said, it's a lot of the behind the scenes back end stuff of creating these personalized plans and working on all of this that honestly can take up a huge, huge amount of time for a lot of coaches. And so, it's not that we aren't data driven, right? It's not that we aren't, wanting to look at all the data, look at all the pieces, look at all of this stuff. I think you get a lot of the best of both worlds, but you also might have a coach who really sort of relies more heavily on one aspect versus the other. And so, again, that may or may not be the best fit for you. And so, coaching at the end of the day is like just so much more than just here's your plan, follow it, right? Like it's helped with so many more things. It's so much bigger than just creating running plans. And this is why I really don't think that AI is going to be, totally making me obsolete anytime soon. Because really, like a lot of people need and want that human connection, right? You want to talk about your goals. You want to talk about your needs. You want to talk about your struggles. Like the reason we don't reach our goals isn't because we don't have the right plan to follow, right? Like that might be part of it, right? Maybe in the past you followed plans that didn't get you where you wanted to be because it wasn't a good plan. But a lot of times it's the bridge between knowing what we need to do and actually doing it And that's where the challenge lies. And that's where coaching is so important, because it's helping you problem solve, helping you troubleshoot. It's helping you take the big things that you want to achieve and break it down into those little action steps that we can do on a consistent basis to build up to get to where we want to go. And it just brings me back to, thinking about obviously working in the nutrition space. I've been a dietitian for over 10 years now. And like we've had these calorie tracking programs and even meal planning apps and things like that for a number of years now. And I remember, and I think people still sometimes say this, but I remember people sort of saying like, well, if we can just track our calories in an app and just put in what we're eating into an app, or just have an app that just tells me what to eat and gives me my meal plan, who would ever need a dietitian, right? Like what dietitians, we're going to be obsolete, right? I mean, that just has not happened. In fact, I feel like there's actually more demand than ever for nutrition professionals, and more demand than ever for sports specific nutrition professionals, because coaching is so much more than that, right? Coaching and having someone to talk to about your goals, about your struggles, is so much bigger than just here's the meal plan, follow it. And so how should you choose, or how do you decide what exactly you should do here? If you've been kind of comparing, you've been looking at like, oh, I really want to work with this coach, but it's expensive, or, I'm curious about trying an AI plan for my next race because I've worked with a coach and it was hopefully a great experience, but maybe there's something else out there that's a little bit more budget conscious. I think, and this is so important, and I say this in so many different areas of life, spend some time reflecting. Sit down and figure out exactly what you need help with and where you struggle as a runner. Have you been working with a coach for a long time? Do you feel like you have a really good handle on knowledge and education and pacing strategy and motivation? Like you know all the things. You've done this a lot. Nutrition, hydration, all that. Yep, all good. But you just need a plan to follow. In that case, like AI might be right for you, or are you someone who does really struggle with mindset, motivation, nutrition, hydration, or figuring out why you keep running into certain problems on your run? You're getting injured, you're hitting the wall, your race day pacing always seems to fall apart, right? You might have a solid training plan, or you might get through a training block with no problem, but just can't seem to figure out what to do on race day. These are places where AI is just not going to be able to help you. And, the straightforwardness of just having the plan to follow it and then get to the finish line and you're good. I think there's a time and a place for that. But I think that for a lot of especially newer runners, really having that coaching experience, that coaching relationship is a huge first step, just to make sure that running does become as sustainable for you as possible and that you really enjoy and love your time doing this sport. So, for me personally, AI is here to stay, right? I mean, it's been here for years. Like, let's be honest. I mean, AI has been part of a lot of what we do for a long time. I think it's just become more prominent and just kind of more at the forefront with some of the specific tools that have come out lately. And I think seeing more AI content on social media has really brought it to the forefront in a way that it hasn't before. And of course, a lot of platforms are rolling out AI and stuff like that. So it's just becoming more prominent and more integrated into our daily lives. For me personally, though, I mean, I don't need to have a program that I'm like taking all of my clients' data and like filtering it through and having it tell me what the training plan should be. Cause like I can do that. I know how to do that. That's not like, right. But what I would really love to see is an AI platform built for coaches that gets rid of or reduces some of the behind the scenes like grunt work for me as a coach, right? So like for me, sitting down and scheduling in my clients' workouts, right? Each client takes a considerable amount of time for me, whether I'm doing this on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis for my clients, to actually sit down and like put each individual workout into a client's calendar. And so if there was a program out there that could save me some of that, like the behind the scenes of actually putting the workouts into the calendar, I still, of course, want the creative control and the ability to like plan the workouts and like tell it what the workout should be and do that part of it. But like the actual time spent, putting those into the schedule, like that's the stuff that I really wish AI would be able to do for me. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. So do I think that AI is going to completely ruin the coaching industry? I really don't think so. I think that there's probably a lot of runners who are going to maybe try some of these apps, have success, or maybe not, and then work with a coach. Or they're going to have worked with a coach and then they're going to use the apps. Like I don't think it's ever going to be an either or. I think there's a huge opportunity for a blend of using these different tools that we have available. I do think it has a lot to offer, like I said, as a tool in maybe streamlining some of our processes and provide a really great low cost option for runners who are between seasons of needing a coach. But I would say that, for you, the runner who's listening to this, really take into consideration what you're looking for, what your needs are, where you're struggling before deciding which way to go. Because at the end of the day, something that saves you money in the short term might end up costing you a lot, either financially or with your body, right? Like with your health in the long run, if the plan that you're getting is just not appropriate for you. So if you happen to be a runner who is looking for a coach, or you do want training plans that I have created by a real human person that do all that fancy stuff, right? That sync to your watch and you can follow along on your watch and all that fun stuff that we all want in a training plan these days. If you're looking for those types of resources, but also want that human connection, also want that human coaching capability to give you the education that you need to answer your questions, to customize your plan to what your goals and needs are. This is exactly the kind of thing that I offer inside the Fuel Train Recover Club. So when I was putting together this program, I wanted people to have access to training plans, right? That was a huge thing that a lot of my audience said they wanted training plans to follow. But I also deeply, deeply believe that a training plan is no good if it isn't customizable, right? Anybody can go and print a training plan off the internet, right? You do not need to join my program in order to get a training plan. But by having a live training plan, right, that syncs to your watch that we can update and we can customize, we can work together on in real time, I think that is tremendously valuable and really helpful for the clients that I have inside the Fuel Train Recover Club. So one of my favorite features is our training plan platform and training plan library. And I really love to work with runners on sitting down and taking, a template training plan and sitting down and customizing it, right? Putting in those vacation weeks. If you're running a couple of races that are pretty close together, right? How do we kind of manage things and sort of tweak and modify things? These are the types of services and types of resources that you find inside the Fuel Train Recover Club. So if that's what you're looking for, but of course, for a fantastic price, right? Much less than hiring a one-on-one coach, then you can check out all of the details and everything else you get inside the Fuel Train Recover Club. Because believe me when I say we have it all, everything you need to become a better runner. You can find more information about that at the link in the show notes. And I would love to have you join us. So that is it for this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, got some more information about the pros and cons of using AI here in the running space, where I think it might be going, where I think it might be most useful for me. And, let's all just wait and see how it pans out. So we will see you right back here next week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.